Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Retrofit Information Support and Expertise Masterclass on retrofit solutions and supply chain development. RISE is a fully funded service provided by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. My name's Dan Leeming. I'm a consultant at TNT and also a support manager for the sort of northern region with RISE. Joined here today by Kevin Clark from Procure Plus, who'll be leading today's presentation. Just before we get in, so do have the following line from the department, which is that we are only able to comment or provide clarifications on the draft Wave 3 guidance, which was published earlier in May at this time. We cannot comment on timings or next steps for SHDF Wave 3 or any other government schemes. When we are able to share anything further, we will do so. So now that's all the T's and C's out the way. Hand over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate it, and thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Kevin Clark. I'm a Senior Account Delivery Manager at Procure Plus, and I've been asked to deliver this session today. In terms of an overview of the day, these are some of the subjects that I'm going to be talking about. But the aim of today ultimately is to give you a very quick overview of what retrofit is, and really try and give you an indication as to how you can get involved in this, the opportunities for contractors in various different ways, and how you can go about being procured. So if I can give you, first of all, an introduction as to who Procure Plus are. Apologies, I've just gone a bit too fast there. Procure Plus, a not-for-commercial profit framework provider. We are based in the Northwest, and we currently work with approximately 100 organisations across the country. We've got framework offerings for everything related to housing, so we've got an overview of the market in its entirety. And in June 2021, we put in place a procurement route, a retrofit dynamic purchase system that was new to the market, which was specifically designed so that organisations could procure retrofit contractors. And since that went live in June 2021, it's been very busy and very successful, and we've done over 60 retrofit procurements on that. As part of those procurements, we've delivered over £130 million worth of retrofit installations, and we're currently working on just over £100 million worth of retrofit projects in the most recent rounds of funding. Now, I give you those numbers just by way of explanation, just to talk about where I'm coming from when I give you an overview of the market, and hopefully you can see already the scale of the opportunities there, the scale of the market, and the scale of the chances for you to get involved. And the beauty of retrofit is that it comes in all shapes and sizes. We work on schemes with 10, 12 properties, right the way through to schemes of thousands and thousands of properties. And no matter what type of organisation you are, there's an opportunity for you to get involved in that. And hopefully at the end of today, you'll understand a little bit better about how you get involved and how that impacts on yourselves. So if we turn and just give a really basic overview as to what retrofit is, apologies if I'm teaching Granny to suck eggs here, but what I wanted to get across the message was that retrofit is something you're probably already doing the bulk of it. If you are a contractor doing installations, the work that we're talking about as part of these schemes is likely something that you're delivering already. So when we talk about retrofit, we're talking about improvement work on existing buildings which look to improve the energy efficiency of it. When we think about what measures, what installations will do that, the prevailing ethos within the industry at the moment is for a fabric first approach to properties. So we're talking about all types of insulation measures, external, cavity, underfloor, loft and room and roof. Some other measures which can improve the EPC band of the property can be heat pump installation at a ground source or air source, solar PV installations, high heat retention storage heaters, battery storage, LED lights, and other smaller energy improvement measures. And every single energy improvement measure that we install on a property is backed up with an appropriate ventilation strategy. And it really is important that ventilation is done correctly. Now, as I said at the start, and just to sort of elaborate on here, projects really are at a different scale and different size across the country. Whilst retrofit is an emerging market, there hasn't really been defined best practice amongst some of the local authorities and amongst some of the social housing organisations that we work with. They're all working on projects at different scale, and that's dictated to by the size of their budget, by the nature of their stock and some of their previous experience when they've been delivering retrofit. In terms of the requirements, what I wanted to do now was just to give you a brief overview of some of the additional requirements that are there to assist you. Because this is funded work, understandably, there are some additional requirements there around administration, and also there is accreditation that is required in order to ensure that you can be involved in some of these funded retrofit schemes. And what we've got there is the three main areas of accreditation that are typically applicable on these schemes. Accreditation stands to reason that it's there to ensure that the work is of the requisite quality and that it's being installed by suitably qualified installers. So in terms of the accreditation, we've got MCS, which is the Micro Generation Certification Scheme, and that's accreditation for renewable technologies. And also you will need pass and trust mark certification to install energy efficiency measures to the required standard. Now, one of the major differences with retrofit work is that obviously we've got the installations, we've got the accreditations, but there is also some level of administration there. Now, I'm not going to get too much into that administration because we can get bogged down in it quite quickly. But there is a retrofit path, a defined retrofit path when we deal with these properties, where a property is retrofit assessed, the installations are complete, and then the paperwork is collated and filed with Trustmark. And there's a process that is clear and defined and set out, and these accreditations and certification support that. In terms of the market, and I think this is one of the really interesting elements, something that I want to spend quite a bit of time talking about, because it is an emerging market and the future of it is exciting. I talked at the start about Procure Plus and the work that we do. We are but one organisation who provides these framework opportunities, and it's important for me to say that. So when I talk about the numbers that Procure Plus are dealing with, that's just us in silo. There are other organisations who do similar. And whenever I do these presentations, I always say that the size of the challenge is so great that it is going to need many hands in order to make light of this work. So I wanted to just give you sort of an overview of the scale of the market and where we are currently. It is a rapidly expanding market. The rounds of funding that have come from government have increased over the most recent rounds, and then SHDF3, which we just talked about briefly at the start, that's seen an increase yet again. Obviously, we're in a pre-election period at the moment. We can't talk with any certainty as to what the future is, but from our perspective, that's the way that we see the market is going. It's an exciting market to work in. I'd not really dealt with a great deal of retrofit work up until sort of 2.5, 3 years ago, and it's now approximately 3/4 of my time. And there's a really exciting network of organisations and stakeholders who are involved in these retrofit activities, sharing that best practice with each other, able to talk to each other about the demands of delivering these schemes and passing on that market intelligence. And it's a fantastic network to plug yourself into. And we're not just talking about installers here, we're talking about manufacturers, we're talking about consultancy support, we're talking about people who are looking at green skills and how we provide apprenticeship routes into it. And everybody is connected and talking to each other at any time. There's a real opportunity when it comes to skills development. One of the things that we're doing, which is similar to something carried out by other organisations, is that we're looking at upskilling within the supply chain. So we have a partnership with City and Guilds where we're providing upskilling to existing electrical and plumbing operatives so that they can understand how to install and maintain PV and air source heat pumps. The beauty of that is that you've got increased skills then within your labour force, but it also creates new opportunities lower down the chain that you can start to fill with apprentices. So there's a real opportunity for economic benefit. What we are starting to see within the market as well is an integration of services, a turnkey solution, in effect streamlined retrofitting. There is a clear demarcation in the retrofit process in between retrofit services and retrofit installations. Some organisations, when they're procuring, they look to procure that separately. So they'll procure retrofit services support to assess the property and do the retrofit coordination, and then they'll procure just an installer. But what we are starting to see is some decent sized regional organizations who offer a turnkey solution. So in effect, contracts can be parked with them and they can deal with everything from retrofit assessment right the way through to installations and coordination. And with an emerging market, with services expanding and elaborating, what we're seeing is a significant innovation within the sector. And it is a really exciting time as new businesses join the market at any time, new business models start to be seen as well. And all of that is with a view to tackling this significant retrofit challenge that we've got. From my perspective, whenever I talk about this and we talk to potential apprentices, we talk about this being a potential career option. There are significant employment opportunities there for people, and we expect it to be a key driver for job creation in the construction and energy sectors. Okay, so if we start to look at the future outlook and if we start to look at market trends, I think for me, the most important one to know is the last one. The retrofit industry must grow tenfold. And that's a significant portion of UK emissions that we need to deal with. And that gives you an indication of the scale of the challenge and the opportunity for organisations. I think one of the other things to sort of note at this point is that it is a real opportunity to bring your business into the 21st century with digital transformation and automation. As I said previously, there is a significant amount of administration and paperwork and evidence that needs to be collated on these particular schemes, and we are seeing real innovation in terms of how that is shared, how that information is shared, and how that data is passed between organisations. So it's a real exciting opportunity to be at the forefront of an evolving market. I think another thing which is particularly interesting is the localizing of supply chains. That's something that we've seen a lot of clients have a real focus on when they're looking to do procurements, looking at local economic impact, looking at how it benefits local supply chains and how it can evidence support for local growth and stimulate the market. We do a lot of work in different regions within England and Wales, and it is a key question always: what's the local supply chain? What's the local economic impact? And that is with one eye on the future and the amount of retrofit work that needs to be delivered, how they can give themselves the best possible opportunity of delivering that in the future. As ever, with any kind of emerging market, there are new technologies and there are new innovations that I just wanted to talk very briefly about. The first one that is referenced there is underfloor insulation robots, which I suppose technically it is a new innovation, but it's something that's been around for sort of a couple, 3 years now. And we see some really exciting schemes, some exciting projects which have utilised that. If you are looking to move into the retrofit market, it is always important to keep an eye out for these new technologies and new developments. They tend to give you an opportunity to display innovation when you're looking to tender for some of these contracts. So keeping abreast of these new technologies is really of use. One of the most interesting ones that we're seeing at the moment is digital surveying technologies. Properties have to be retrofit assessed, so anything that can improve the accuracy and reduce the amount of time taken to assess properties and to give us greater accuracy of imaging is certainly the way forward. And we are seeing some interesting work with drones. We're also seeing as well is things like digital twins, pulse air testing, and innovations as far as materials are concerned as well. Again, always with one eye towards sustainability and considering that economic impact. So the big question is, how do you get involved as an organisation? If you are a contractor and you're looking to get involved in this type of work, how do you go about doing it? Typically speaking, there are three main ways that these contracts are procured by an organisation. If it is a big enough organisation, then they will procure it directly themselves. They will use their buying power, they will use their knowledge of the market, and they'll use their existing supply chain in order to tender for it directly for themselves. Alternatively, a client can choose to use a framework or a dynamic purchase system, and then under the umbrella of that, they can look to run a tender or a mini competition. Or the third option, which is something that we've seen become a little bit more common in the most recent rounds of funding, is a direct selection via an established framework. And there are different variables which a client will consider when thinking about their procurement routes and thinking about their procurement options. And we are seeing a lot of clients choosing different policies, choosing different tax to understand exactly how they're going to define their route to market. Each client has their own procurement strategy. It's dictated to by the size of the organization, their internal retrofit agenda, what their administrative resources, what their internal governance is, and what their previous experience of retrofit is. But those ultimately are the three main routes. So if I just give you a really quick overview of a framework and a DPS, and then what I'll do once I've talked about that is talk about how you as an organization can look to get involved as quickly as possible. In terms of a framework is a fixed list of contractors based on the framework provider going to market. So in effect, a framework provider will pull together a specification and look to get a schedule of rates. And what you will then have is a fixed list of contractors for the lifetime of the framework, which is typically 4 years. The selection criteria for that framework is defined when the framework provider goes out to market. There is a price and quality split, and as I say, a schedule of rates would then be provided. Once that framework then goes live, a mini competition could be run under that framework to that fixed list of contractors, or a direct selection could be used, selecting a contractor from the framework using their schedule of rates. And as I say, that is something that we've seen become a little bit more common in the most recent round of funding. And the benefit of that is that significantly cuts down your tender windows and allows you to move forward and get towards delivery that little bit quicker. In terms of a DPS, which is a different procurement route, a dynamic purchase system, that's something which is a little bit more fluid and a little bit more flexible. The beauty of that from a contractor perspective is that these lists are live. So if there is an existing dynamic purchase system in the market at the moment, you can apply to join that at any point during the life of the DPS. In terms of joining the DPS, there is a lower barrier to entry, so there isn't a price or quality assessment. There tends to be an accreditation check to ensure that you've got all the correct certification, some experience questions to ensure that you do have requisite experience of delivering these types of schemes, and then at that point, typically, you can be admitted to the DPS. Once you are on the DPS, you can then be included in any tenders that are run under it. And the one downside of the DPS is that it does have to be by way of tender. It can't be a direct selection because there aren't any framework rates. So yeah, there does have to be a tender under the DPS, but it is a live list from your perspective. In terms of how you want to get involved as an organization, I think it starts off with some key questions that you might want to think about asking yourself. The great news, ultimately, from your perspective, though, is that you can get involved immediately. So once you've got your accreditations, once you've got your MCS and your trust mark and your pass accreditations, then in theory, you could look to join a DPS immediately. Before you join a DPS, I think the things that I would be looking to consider is what type of organization do you want to be? What type of organization can you be right now? So can you directly deliver, or do you need to be part of a larger retrofit managing agent supply chain? Think about whether you've got any existing partners with organizations who may be considering delivering retrofit, or do you have existing relationships as a subcontractor with larger organizations who are delivering these works? Once you start to think about that, then you can see quickly within the market whether there are any retrofit frameworks which might be out to tender soon. Also, you can see if there are any retrofit DPSs that you can join immediately. And then once you've joined those immediately, you're effectively in the hunt and you can start to see these tenders straight away. It is an emerging and it is a competitive market. So think about what you can do to give yourself the best possible chance to be successful in a tender. And that goes back to some of those technological innovations that are out there within the market. Can you get on top of those technological innovations, and how can you use those in any tenders that you put forward? But there is a significant amount of resource that is available and is out there. I just put some links there for some of the websites. Retrofit Academy gives significant amounts of information with regards pass. The Procure Plus website has information with regards retrofit and DPSs, and then Rise in and of itself also provides a significant amount of information for you as well.